truth is no longer true.
We cannot live together in peace if we cannot distinguish truth from error.
The American Religious Town Hall is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
I'm James Weingartner, sitting in for Pastor Jerry Lutz, and we're so glad to have you with us. We have a tremendous panel today, and we want them to comment on our subject. But before they do, let's have them introduce themselves to you.
My name is Bishop Michael Olson, and I'm a Roman Catholic, and I serve as the Bishop of the Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Tom Plumbley. I'm Senior Minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas, right down the street from Michael's Cathedral. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Hi, I'm Carl TROVALL. I'm Professor of Ethics and History at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, which is affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Hello, I'm Tony Matthews, and I serve as Senior Pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
Truth seems to be under attack, so let's have a nice discussion about that from religious leaders in our area. At one point in the story of the trials of Jesus in John's Gospel, Jesus tells the Roman governor of the region, Pontius Pilate, that he was simply born to tell the truth. Pilate cuts off the conversation by asking the rhetorical question, "What is truth?" implying either that truth is unknowable or that there are multiple truths. Because of this quandary, Pilate then did not have the courage to spare the life of an innocent man. Pilate's situation might be said to be the order of the day in our times. Some influencers, people who have an impact on information people receive or the way that they digest information, have so perniciously peddled conspiracy theories and lies that some have said that the very fabric of truth has been destroyed. For millions of people, it seems we can no longer even agree on what is real and what is not real, what is factual and what is error. Just as Pilate's failure to let what he knew to be true, the innocence of Jesus, prevail, so too the continued lying of people with real influence still has real consequences. People die and will continue to die because we seem stuck with Pilate asking what is truth in regard to climate change, the value of vaccines, the new virus that became a pandemic, the existence of fraud in the election, the causes of waves of migration at our borders, the causes of mass shootings, and even things like the government being run by a cabal of cannibals. The list goes on and on, as does the damage done by those who call true false and false true. Our panelists have discussed these issues from several angles. One, the question looms behind each of them that we have largely succumbed to Pilate's syndrome, immobilized by the inability to distinguish true and false. Does truth exist? If it does, are we still able to discern it? Question one, when people speak of my truth as opposed to your truth, what are they really saying? How does a moral person respond to that? Two, is democracy or perhaps civil society itself dependent on an agreed set of facts? And three, do we move from here, where we are, to a better place in regard to understanding simple truths and false? That's what we want to ask our panelists, and so we begin again with Tony.
All right, when people speak of my truth versus your truth, I hear this phrase, my truth, so often. I'm almost tired of it, especially with some of our younger generation. And I think when people say my truth, obviously it means this is my opinion, this is my experience. And I think there are some flaws with the phrase "my truth" as I understand it to be used. First, the first flaw is if someone is saying this is my truth as opposed to your truth, that means that because it's my truth, you can't challenge it. And I'm always right. It cannot be contradicted. It cannot be challenged, even if it's wrong. And I've had a lot of folks to come to me and say, well, this is my truth, knowing that it was wrong, incorrect, or either a lie. A second flaw is many times when people say this is my truth, it is subjective. And how I feel or what I'm thinking today. And we know that if something is subjective, it's just how I feel. It needs to be, you need to have a standard, and we need to kind of measure that against what's objective and factual. I was reading a story where Mr. Subjective and Mr. Objective were in a room together, and they were both asked about what is the temperature. One said 65 degrees, the other one said 70 degrees. Now we know they both couldn't be right. And so obviously the way to find out what the true answer was is to look at the thermostat. So you go to the thermostat and the thermostat says, well, actually it's 80 degrees. So they both were wrong, but Mr. Objective aligned his findings with the correct standard, 80 degrees. Whereas Mr. Subjective said, no, I'm going to stick to what I'm saying because that's how I feel. And the problem with it feels like it's the temperature I said. So I think the challenge that we have in our world today is with this whole my truth language and lingo is that people don't want to hear the correct thing. And I'll say more about that later on.
Michael.
Thank you, Tony. Very good points. I think the emphasis, as Tony pointed out, with my truth is the my part of it. I think that there's something about truth that is, it's beyond us. It's really the truth that holds us. It's even more than facts, all right? So it starts with facts. Facts are deeds or things that have been performed, done, written, said, etc. And then there are circumstances as well, all right? And the circumstances surround, well, why did he say that? Why did she do that? What did she mean by that? What did he say by that? These are all very important things that modify the facts. And part of the truth is to understand how circumstances and intentions modify facts. So I think that the Greek word for truth is aletheia, which means not forgetting. All right, it is a double negative in a certain sense. It's like, it's not just remembering, it's not forgetting what's happened, and it takes intentionality. Part of the current challenge is that narrative has begun to be the dominant first starting point for how we come to judge, decide, and move things, first as individuals, and then as a community. And then we find the facts that fit our narrative and selectively insert them. All right, so now we have a story, and an interesting story, but we also don't have the truth nor an attempt to find the truth, which is the limits of my opinions or my position. In other words, it takes a community to come to an understanding of what is true. And you know, and things cannot be true in different ways. There's error, as Tony's story talked about. You know, it's like, oh, I thought it was 80 degrees, and that of course is all contingent upon if we agree on what we're measuring to begin with. And the other thing is then there's also untruth, which regards lying or the deliberate deceiving of people for self-advantage. And if we can't agree on truth, well, then lying becomes the standard of the day. That becomes a political strategy. Then there's also things that aren't true in the sense of metaphor, right? When Jesus said Herod is a fox, he didn't just miraculously turn into a fox for that moment. I mean, it's the truth. He was a fox, but he's not a fox. He was a man. So I think truth holds us more than us using it as a tool for our own self-advantage.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, I teach philosophy as one of my responsibilities. So this is all swirling, right? Because it's like there's no way I can get out everything I'm going to say. But I want to just jump on something you said, and that it was. There's a book that was it's on BS. It actually had the full title. All right. And this person said one of the key problems is that at least someone who's lying knows what the facts are, right? Because they know enough to lie about it. But when people don't know what's true or not true or factual or not factual and then speak about it, that's problematic because you cease to be able to have any kind of communication or movement forward, because at least with someone who's lying, we're all in agreement about what the facts are. And that was helpful to me to distinguish, the reason I'm going there is I also want to distinguish between the idea of fact and truth, because I was partially using them interchangeably, and that's just not really fair, because to me, and I forget the writer, he distinguished between bald facts, which he means something that all of us have access to, this cup sitting here, right? That we all have access to it. But if I say something that quarks are impossible, you may say, well, I don't know, I think that's doubtable, but I don't even want to use that as an illustration. I want to say that Theravada Buddhism is actually the true understanding of reality, right? Now, to someone who's a Theravada Buddhist, that is a true statement. But to those of us who come out of the Western tradition, we're going, no, I disagree. But the problem is that how are we going to adjudicate between our claims and their claims? And they certainly have reasons for what they're saying, and it's true to them. So that's why this truth thing is really challenging, because I don't think that all truths are accessible to everyone. I think certain factual things certainly are. And the rest of it, and this is, your comments about community, I wanted to connect with that too, because I think that's another piece, is that this is why we have communities to wrestle about what these justifying reasons for our beliefs are that make sense. I'll just stop.
Okay.
I have one more, but I'll save it.
Well, I want to hear your next one, but I want to get us back to deliberate lying, because I think that is one of the things that has grown in the past decade and a half or so, that has really become detrimental. That, along with the ability to spread those deliberate falsehoods. Those who do know better, those who do know the reality, but deliberately choose not to tell it, or to tell something else. There is this whole business of my truth and your truth and all of that is usually about perspective, I think. And for that I think about the different blind people trying to tell what an elephant looks like by touching the different parts of the elephant. They have very different perspectives. If you touch the trunk, or if you touch the ear, or if you touch the leg, or if you're touching the tail, on what that elephant is, but they have not changed the elephant. The elephant is still the elephant. It is still the reality, and it takes all of them coming together to discuss what they experienced to determine the fullness of that reality. So in a sense, that's the social part of what Bishop Olson was talking about just a moment ago. I think that it takes our different perspectives to help us understand the fullness of reality. However, facts are facts, and we do have some folks who deliberately are lying, and we need to call that out.
Yes, I think there's, it has just become so rampant that people who are lying believe their lies to be true. I mean, and the more, or they will cite their own claims as justification for secondary claims that all are wrong, and they're wrong because they're not true. The other thing is, the manipulative thing is a partial truth, you know, where it's like, you know, this is true and there's more to the story. No, that's all I need. That's all I need for my purposes. And that's very disturbing. But what's new that I find very concerning is an indifference to the truth, to even wanting to know it. And I see that by the standards that our media are held to, and then also just people deciding to get their news, their information, simply from blogs that are, and other sources that are, by admission, biased. And I don't want to hear any other perspective, because I really don't want to come to know the thing in itself. I just want to be reinforced in my own ignorance or partial understanding until I don't want to be so enforced anymore.
Perfect example was in the last election cycle when one candidate believed that one network that had always supported him no longer supported him, or told some things about him that he did not appreciate, and therefore told everybody that they no longer needed to listen to this network, but go over and listen to yet another one that told even more bald-faced lies. It's just, it's criminal, frankly. It crosses the line because it damages our social contract. It damages our ability to be together. As you said in your counter to the cliffhanger at the very beginning, that we cannot be together if we cannot be together peacefully, right, if we cannot distinguish truth from falsehood.
How do we do that? Is that where discernment comes in? If you know, you talk about the lies and truth, we have to have a level of discernment. And then where do we get discernment from? And then, you know.
And conversation.
And conversation, okay.
Conversation helps. You know, I share my perspective and you tell me, well, that's really wrong. Parts of, I appreciate you, and parts of what you, Tom, have said are really true, but some of that's just not right. And at some point, we have to be able to talk with each other that way.
Ultimately, if we're talking about things with evidence, with warrants for why we say something, we're going to get to some point of agreement on a fact that's indisputable. Then you can go against. So it's, I mean, I look at it this way. You ask, well, why do we have stop signs? You know, why do we have stop signs? And they say, well, they're a good thing. Why are they a good thing? Well, they're a good thing because they regulate traffic. But why is it a good thing to regulate traffic? Well, so we don't have accidents. Well, why are accidents bad? Well, people can get hurt and even die in them. Ah, okay. Well, now we've reached a level that life is of such a value that we need stop signs, and it's a bad thing. You know, ultimately, there gets to be some sort of comedy where we all agree killing people is not a good idea, and being reckless with people is also not a good idea, because human life is of great value.
Thank you, Michael.
Do we have absolute truth to our philosophy?
Well, and I think as Michael just pointed out, we have some things that we kind of agree on in the Decalogue. There are things that are absolutely true. We're going to go to a break, and we'll be right back.
We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you and today's closing statements.
And a big thank you to the Town Hall organization for sponsoring our program. And also, if you have any ideas or suggestions for future programs, please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And now our panelists who have been engaged so actively in this particular discussion are going to give you their summations.
I think the development of Western civilization as it began was really, the headroads were first made in Athens in the sense that philosophy, in some sense, that where reason and right reason replaced narrative, the narrative of the poets of ancient Greece with reason and discourse, as opposed to Sparta, where the resolution of differences was who could scream the loudest and who had the larger army. All right, and unfortunately, I'm afraid that we've been, in our society, tending more and more towards Sparta, where we replace one biased perspective with another biased perspective because it's more powerful at the time. We need truth, and we need at least a desire to know the truth first, because the truth and our desire for the truth connects us to the immaterial goods that we can share more in common without them dissipating, as opposed to material goods in society, where the more we share them, the more they diminish. The truth has to guide us so that at least our desire for it and our desire to be governed by it will create some sense of order that simultaneously respects human freedom, individual responsibility, and social accountability. Thank you, Carl.
I looked at this list that was in the moderator's statement, and these are, to me, all different levels. And I think that's one of our problems, is that we're conflating some really highly complex issues with some issues that are actually fairly simple. I mean, here we have climate change. Everyone believes there's climate change, just whether it's human caused or not. And I understand that the preponderance says it's caused by humans, but there are scientists who don't believe that. The value of vaccine seems almost universally agreed, unless people just didn't. Well, no, I'm saying people. But my point is that climate change and the value of vaccines and why we have people who are migrating to our borders. These are. Some are more clearly in the realm of kind of accessible facts that you can call to be true, and others are more in the realm of interpretation about, we don't know why this is happening, but here's the problem, is that when we all of a sudden have our political positions and we're all associated, well, I stand for the truth, and obviously you stand for something that's not true, that this messes things up. We need to be more careful about what we're calling fact and what we're calling true. That's all I'm calling for.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we are met with the question that Pilate asked, what is truth? And then what do we do with Jesus? You know, Jesus is truth. And that whole context there, Pilate, you know, it was truth for him that Jesus was innocent, but for others it was their truth that Jesus was guilty. And as you mentioned in your statements, Pilate, he caved. And I think we have to, I think it's really important when we look at from a spiritual perspective, having a sense of discernment, knowing what's true, what's false, good from evil. As I understand Scripture, everyone has natural discernment. We'll know, good from evil. We see that in Genesis. And then there's a gift of discernment that in the Corinthian correspondence talks about.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a very difficult question for us to deal with because of the roles that we play, whether professor or pastor and preacher. We are people who are called upon to define truth in many ways, or to tell, and certainly to tell truth all the time. And there is just so much out there that is not. And when we see some of our colleagues, folk who at least carry some of the same titles that we do, that deal in conspiracy theories and have big television audiences to hear them, that does not help. We need to tell the truth, which means admitting the places that where we don't know what's going on, and we need to listen to each other, and we need to call out those the faults that we hear and see as well.
Thank you, Tom. The charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. Now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. May the God of all of us bless all of you.
Oh, beautiful